Hi, welcome to my channel. For today's video, I'm going to be doing my June wrap-up. So I read a total of 8 books in the month of June. I'm now at 51 books for the year, so I actually want to read 100 books this year, so I got halfway to my goal, which is great. I feel like I'm on track as of now. But yeah, I kind of had some mixed opinions on some of the books I read this month, but I feel like I also read some pretty good books too. So yeah, let's just get into it. I'm just going to be sharing each of the books I read and kind of some brief thoughts on them and my ratings. So the first book that I read was Rock Bottom Girl by Lucy Score. I started this one at the end of May, and this one's one that kind of took me a while to get through just because, I don't know, it was like, I wouldn't say it was slow, but it was kind of just like a simple book that I was just getting through. Like, I wasn't in any rush to finish it. It wasn't like something that was like so good that I couldn't put it down, you know? But yeah, this book basically follows a woman who is 38 years old and she's kind of like reached her rock bottom point. She just broke up with her boyfriend and she just lost her job. So she moves in with her parents back to her hometown that she hasn't been to in years. And when she moves back to her parents' house, she ends up living next door to the girl who bullied her in high school. So she's kind of in this position where she's already like reached rock bottom and then she has to move back and it's just like getting even worse. But then she ends up getting a temporary job as a soccer coach at her high school, and her mom finds this job for her, so she kind of doesn't really have a choice. Like, she kind of needs it, so she takes it. And then she ends up running into this guy that she kind of had a crush on in high school, and he was kind of like the bad boy, and now he's kind of completely flipped and he is a social studies teacher and he's also the cross-country coach. So at one point she kind of gets herself into this situation where he kind of helps her out of it, and I won't go too in depth into like the details of it, but basically they start fake dating and they kind of make a deal with each other. So he's gonna help her like be better at coaching because she's kind of struggling with her team, with her soccer team, and then she's gonna help him kind of learn how to date because he's never been like in a serious relationship and he kind of feels like he's in a position now where he's ready to settle down maybe. So they kind of both help each other out, and of course in that they start to fall for each other because they do have a history together from high school. So yeah, this was my first book that I read by Lucy Score. I know she has a bunch of other books and so many of them sound like really cute to me, so I actually want to read a lot of her other books. The main one being Things We Never Got Over. That one is one that I like really need to get to soon, but for some reason I just decided to pick up this one and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really cute book. It's like funny, but it also has like a good message to it too, and I think I rated this one 4.75 stars. I don't know, it was kind of long. It was like over 500 pages, which I feel like is long for a book like this, just because like maybe if there had been like a little bit more to the story, like maybe some other like thing going on. I don't really know, because what I explained is basically all that happens in the book and there's not really much other things going on besides that. Honestly, like I just feel like it could have been shorter. It wasn't really like a slow burn though. It was just kind of a lot of details of things that I feel like could have been skipped, but it just felt like it could have been shorter. So I guess that was kind of like my main complaint, and that's kind of what knocked it down a little bit because that also caused me to like read it a lot slower. But other than that, I thought it was a really great book and I really enjoyed it and I would definitely recommend this one. So the next book I read was The Wrong Game by Candy Steiner. So this book, I had seen it like last year I think, and I kind of had been thinking about reading it for a while. I actually found it on TikTok because the author made this video to kind of like market it. It was like one of those story time videos where like in the end you find out that it's actually a book, and that totally like got me and I really wanted to read this book. So I've been wanting to read it for a while and I had been seeing Candy Steiner pop up a lot. She has a lot of books, so I knew I wanted to get into her books soon, so I was kind of looking for one to read. I decided to go with this one. This one is like one of her more popular books. I'd probably say it's like her second most popular besides A Love Letter to Whiskey, which that one is on my TBR. I want to read that one soon. So yeah, so I decided to read this book. I just wanted something like quick and fast paced. I was kind of looking for like a sports romance. This one is kind of sports romance, but kind of not. There's like some football involved, but neither of the main characters like play sports. So basically in this book, the main character, I don't want to give too much about her background. Definitely check trigger warnings for this one, but I don't want to like say too much about what happened to her in the past. Basically now she's kind of been like not really living her life, I guess. Well, she just hasn't really been dating, I guess, and her best friend kind of encourages her to like get out there again and start dating and stuff. And so this book takes place in Chicago, so she has season tickets to the Chicago Bears games, and her friend tells her to take a date to like each game, like take a different date just to like try out dating again, and in that way it's like something kind of casual. So they're having this conversation at a bar and then she's really nervous about it. She's kind of unsure, but the bartender like overhears all of that and he offers to be like her trial run, and he tells her like she can go with him first to a game just to kind of see how it feels just because she's meeting him in person there, so it kind of takes less pressure off of like meeting someone online. And so they go to this football game together and things go really well, like she ends up taking him back to her apartment well, and then he asks her out again, but she says no because she wants to keep things casual. She's not trying to be in like a serious relationship. And then the following week she ends up going to a game with someone else and he ends up sitting right next to her at the game. He shows up to the game because he wants to see her again. I feel like that sounds like I revealed a lot of the story, but that kind of all happens in the beginning. So kind of the rest of it is their little like back and forth, you know, of him wanting to be with her but her not wanting anything serious. So yeah, it kind of goes from there. There's definitely a lot that goes on in this book, a lot of like serious things that go on too. So this one, I feel like it started off really strong. Like I really liked it in the beginning. I thought it was a really good book and I was really enjoying it, but the conflict, like the big main conflict that happened in the book, I wasn't really a fan of it. It felt very repetitive of like stuff that kind of happened earlier on in the book that seemed like it was resolved, and then it just kind of like wasn't, I guess, and it just came up again as like a big conflict that was like the big main thing that happens in the end, and I just didn't like it. Like after that I just kind of lost interest in it. I didn't really care anymore. And then the ending was cute, but like I didn't even care anymore at that point, like what happened with them, because I was just annoyed with what happened with the big conflict of the story. So yeah, overall, like I enjoyed it in the beginning, but it just kind of went downhill once we got to that main conflict of the story. So I did rate it 4 stars, but I kind of am unsure about my rating. It wasn't the best book, but it did start off good, so I feel like I'm kind of thinking about it like with that, how it started, you know? But yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave it as 4 stars, but I feel like it could be a little bit lower. It's probably like a 3.5 to 4 stars maybe. It just kind of depends. I feel like it could be an enjoyable book, but it just wasn't for me, I guess. But I do still want to read more of Candy Steiner's books. I didn't like dislike it enough to not want to give her other books a chance, so I definitely want to read more of her other books. And yeah, I've heard good things about some of her other books, so I have a few of them that are on my TBR now. So next I read the Summer I Turned Pretty series by Jenny Han. I have already done videos on this series. Obviously the show came out this month, so I wanted to watch it. So I read all 3 of these books and I did a reading vlog for them, so I went like more in depth on my thoughts there. And then I also did a video about the TV show, kind of my thoughts on that. But the first book, The Summer I Turned Pretty, I thought it was really cute. I enjoyed it. I ended up rating it 4 stars. I thought it was just a good like introduction to the series. And then the second book, It's Not Summer Without You, I also enjoyed this one. I rated it 4 stars. And then the third book, We'll Always Have Summer, I rated this one 4.5 stars just because this one kind of had like the most drama, I guess I would say, and I personally liked it. Like I was really invested in the story, and yeah, so that's kind of why I rated it a little bit higher with 4.5 stars on that one. But yeah, I really enjoyed these books. I thought they were super cute. They were perfect books for summer. I also really liked the show. I thought that was super cute too. I'm definitely Team Conrad now, and I just got so invested in this story about teenagers. I didn't expect that, but they were really enjoyable books. The next book I read was Every Summer After. So this book was described as The Summer I Turned Pretty and Love in Other Words, like combined basically, and I was really looking forward to reading it. It seemed like everyone I saw that was talking about this book was just obsessed with it and said it was one of their favorite books now, so I was so excited for it because, like I said, I really enjoyed The Summer I Turned Pretty. I also really loved Love in Other Words, which is by Christina Lauren, so with people saying that this book was similar to those two, I had really high expectations for it. So this book basically follows this woman named Persephone. She is 30 years old now, and when she was younger she used to go to this lake house with her parents, and she lived next door to this other guy. His name is Sam, and he lived with his brother and his mom, and so the two of them met when they were like 13, I think, and they ended up becoming really good friends, and eventually they kind of started to fall for each other. And then something happened 12 years ago and they haven't seen each other or spoken to each other in the last 12 years. So now she goes back to this town for something and she runs into him again, and she's only there for the weekend, so she's kind of trying to use that weekend, I guess, to like make things right again and explain to him what happened in the past, because he doesn't really know why she disappeared. So this is another book that started off really strong. It started off so good. I loved it so much. I was getting through this book so quickly because I was just so invested in it. I was so interested in like wanting to know what was going to happen next. And also it switches back and forth from like the then and now, so I really enjoy books like that because you get like so into the story in like one timeline, and then all of a sudden it like switches, and then you get so into like that timeline, and then it just like switches back. And I really love like when books do that and when both timelines are interesting, because it just always makes me want to continue reading the book. So this one, like I said, it started off so good. I literally was loving this book so much, and then we get to like the big like reveal of what happened in the past, and I was kind of disappointed by it. I didn't care for it. It kind of annoyed me. Like, I wasn't even shocked by it either. I didn't necessarily see it coming, but I also wasn't shocked. I was just kind of like, really? Like, that's what happened? And I was kind of just like annoyed. So yeah, I don't know. I just kind of feel like I would have wanted something a little bit more. Kind of like when I read Love in Other Words, which I'm not trying to like compare them, but they are very similar. But when I read Love in Other Words, I didn't see that big twist coming at all. So I feel like I was just kind of wanting something more like that. But with this one, I just wasn't surprised, and I just like didn't really care for what happened. But then after that, like the story obviously continues after we find out what happens, but I didn't really care anymore. Like, it was another story where I just kind of like lost interest after the reveal of what happened. I just kind of have mixed feelings about it. Like, I didn't like what happened, and it just kind of ruined the story a little bit for me. I mean, I thought it was cute, like the ending was cute, it was fine, but I just lost interest again. So again, this is one that I don't really know what my rating is because it started off so good and then it just fell flat in the end for me. Also, my other thing is, I think it's way too similar to Love in Other Words. It's like the same story basically, and it was just like too similar. I feel like you see a lot of repetitive tropes and storylines in books. Obviously, like that's normal and that's gonna happen. Like, you're gonna have a ton of books that are like enemies to lovers or friends to lovers or whatever. Like, you're gonna see these common things that come up, but where it gets creative is kind of like how it's executed among those authors who are writing these tropes. And so that's where like you see like the uniqueness in books, I guess, even when books are really like repetitive and cliche and kind of the same. But this one just felt like too similar. Like, I don't know, Love in Other Words to me was kind of a more unique take on those tropes. Maybe just because I hadn't read anything like that when I read Love in Other Words, so there might be a ton of other books that are really similar to it. Or I guess I have read like similar tropes, but they've all been like different, you know? But this one followed those same tropes that I've seen in other books, but it just felt like the same book as Love in Other Words. There were just way too many things that were like way too similar, and yeah, it just kind of made me not enjoy the book as much because I was kind of comparing it to Love in Other Words. I mean, there were differences obviously, but I don't know, I just immediately kind of was comparing it to that book. So yeah, I don't know, that's kind of my thoughts on it. I don't really have a rating. I'm leaning kind of towards 4 stars because I think it started off good. I just wasn't a fan of how things went in this book. But I mean, I think it was a cute book, like for summertime especially, and I guess I can see why people like it. I just think it wasn't really for me, but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on this one. So the next book I read was Addicted After All by Kristen Becca Ritchie. So this book was actually my 50th book of the year, and so this was the end of the Addicted series. I finally finished it. This is book 5 in the Addicted series, but it's book 7 in like the whole reading order of like Addicted and Calloway combined. So yeah, I took a while to actually start this book. It took me like a week to actually open it and start it, but I also was reading another book at the same time and I paused that one to read this one, so this would be my 50th book. But yeah, it took me like a week to start it, and then I finally started it. I finished it in like 2 days, which was fast for me because I'm like an average reader. It just kind of depends, but I read it like within 2 days, and that was pretty quick for me. And yeah, I was so sad to finish this book, but I also like kept reading it. Like, I really wanted to finish it at the same time. I feel like this one is one that I was hesitant to read because I just love these characters so much, and I knew that this book was going to be amazing and probably make me cry, which it did. And so I was kind of like hesitant to read it because of that, because I knew I would be like really sad once I finished it, especially because I think Lily and Lo are my favorite couple now. I've gone back and forth like a lot on this, but I feel like they're my favorites now. I just really love them a lot, and I loved this book. But yeah, but I finally read it after putting it off for the longest time. I read the last book before this one like 3 months ago, and I didn't intend to wait 3 months to read this one, but I accidentally did. But yeah, I finally read it. It was amazing. I loved it. It was such a great conclusion to Lily and Lo's story, kind of, for now. I know like they're still gonna pop up in the other books and they're still gonna be in the epilogue book, but I just really loved like the ending of their story for now, like in this book, and it was just so sweet. I cried. I mostly cried happy tears, I think, especially at the end, like the last chapter, not including the epilogue, but just like the last like regular chapter. I cried so much. It was so good. But yeah, obviously this was a 5-star book. I really enjoyed it. I am sad that I finished it, but I'm also glad that I finally read it. And like I said, I feel like this one was just the one that I needed to get past, and now I feel like I can read the other 2 and not make a big deal out of putting them off for so long. So those 2 I'm planning to read probably in July. So So the last book that I read was Twisted Lies by Anna Huang. So I got this book like a week early from when it was supposed to be released because Amazon shipped it out early, so I was very happy for that because it came out on June 30th, and I was so excited to get into this book because it is the last one in the Twisted series. And I started reading this series in November, and then I read the first two books like in November I think, or like October and November, and then I read Twisted Hate like the day it came out. I started reading it, and then same with this one, I read it like as soon as I got it. So I had been keeping up with this series. I really loved it a lot. It's so good. But this one, it is the fourth book in the series, but it is kind of a standalone. The series are interconnected standalones. You don't have to read all of them if you want to skip them, but if you do want to read them all, then I definitely recommend reading them in order. I am planning to do a video of like my review on this, I think, because I did do a review video for Twisted Love and Twisted Games, which are the first two books, and I never did like a full review on YouTube for Twisted Hate. So I was gonna do a video with like my review of like Twisted Hate and Twisted Lies, and yeah, I think I'm gonna do that eventually, so I won't go like super in depth of my thoughts or anything, but I did really love this book a lot. I thought it was amazing. I rated it 5 stars. I felt like it was just the perfect ending to this series. But basically the main character in this book is Stella, and her and Christian start fake dating, and he's kind of like a little bit obsessed with her from like just literally from the moment he met her. He's like been obsessed with her, which I kind of loved. It was a little like extreme at some points where I was kind of like, why is he like this obsessed with her? Like he barely knows her, but at the same time I was like completely here for it. Like I also loved how obsessed with her he was. And so basically an opportunity comes up where she kind of needs help, and I guess he would kind of benefit from it too if they both were to fake date. So yeah, so they start fake dating, and so some issues kind of come up with like outside things among both of them. Like they both kind of have like things going on in their lives, but yeah, but they fake date, and he's just so like obsessed with her, and he would do anything for her, including having to kill someone if he needed to. So it's a little extreme, but this book was so good. I loved it so much. It was amazing, and the ending was just perfect. I was like crying basically because of how cute the ending was. Since this is the last book in the series, the ending was obviously a very like happy, like kind of satisfying, complete ending with like all the characters, like all 4 couples. And it was just really sweet seeing that because I've loved this series and I loved all these characters and all these couples. I really enjoyed reading this. Again, I think I'm gonna do like a full length video kind of going a little bit more into it, especially with like the other books too. I want to talk about all 4 of them. But yeah, this was my last book of the month and I really loved it. I'm glad that I got it early because I was so impatient about it. Like people were already getting arcs and I just wanted to read it so badly, and it just totally exceeded all of my expectations. So those are all the books that I read in the month of June. I feel like 8 was like a pretty average number for me, and I also really enjoyed the books I read for the most part, which I'm glad. I haven't been reading like that many 5-star books this year, but I finally had some this month, so that makes me really happy, and I'm just glad that I like was loving the books I was reading. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Definitely let me know any of your thoughts if you've read these books, and if you liked this and you're new to my channel, I would love it if you would subscribe, and thank you so much for watching.